Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is a popular book written back in the 1930s. Today we're going to take a closer look at chapters 2 and 3 from a biblical worldview. Hang around till the end and I'll explain to you why I've read about 2/3 of this book and I'm not reading any more, and I don't think you should either. So chapter 2 is primarily about something called definiteness of purpose. So definiteness of purpose is about having a clear, specific goal in mind and having nothing get in the way. You're unwavering on pursuing that purpose. It often means you're willing to make sacrifices and overcome obstacles to achieve that purpose. It's a mindset that somebody is determined to reach the goal no matter what the cost, and they are not going to be swayed by external factors like criticism or temporary setbacks, as well as internal factors like overthinking. So Hill spends a lot of time in this chapter focusing on the story of Edwin Barnes, who is pursuing a partnership with Thomas Edison. So something that we see in Barnes is that he has definiteness of purpose in his pursuit to work with Edison. So despite not having any direct role in Edison's work, his definiteness of purpose requires him to challenge and confront the obstacles that are in front of him. His determination and his persistence led to his goal, and he became a partner with Thomas Edison. Hill's primary focus in the book is accumulating wealth, obviously since it's called Think and Grow Rich, but we can also think of this as the accumulation of success. And he makes clear that it's not a matter of chance or luck, but deliberate and persistent effort. And so you see in this whole story that this is true of Thomas Edison as well. I mean, he failed a lot before ultimately achieving success in his life. And of course, the success was due to his persistence and his burning desire to defeat the obstacles in front of him. And so Hill points out that this mindset is only achieved by somebody who's determined and willing to do the hard work. In chapter 2, he also gives kind of like a recipe for achieving success with 6 steps. The first step is to determine what is the exact amount of money that it is you're trying to accumulate. Have a very specific number in mind. I think for most of us, the pursuit isn't necessarily about becoming a millionaire, but about what do I need to not have to worry about my finances? How can I help my kids through college and prepare for weddings and retirement in the future? And so those are numbers we can be specific about. Number 2 is to determine what is the work or what are the actions that you need to take to meet that financial goal. Number 3, set a specific date when you plan on meeting that financial goal. Number 4, create a plan of action and start taking the steps right away, even if you feel like you're not ready. And this is something that is so true for you overthinkers out there like I am. We can think and make a plan, but never actually execute the plan because we're so worried about what might happen. What Hill says, and what a lot of people say today even, is just start taking some kind of action. Then step number 5 is to write down those top 4 steps and look at them every morning and evening so they become second nature to you. And number 6 is basically execute. Consistently apply these principles. So remember, having definiteness of purpose and consistent effort are keys to achieving not just financial success, but success in general. So start setting your goals and taking action today. All right, chapter 3 of Think and Grow Rich. So here's where things just begin to get a little bit shaky, I think. Hill says that faith, love, and sex are the most powerful emotions to reach your subconscious mind. And if you didn't know it already, that's really what this book is all about, reaching your subconscious mind to pursue the things that you want to pursue. But this chapter focuses primarily on faith, and this is faith with a small f, right? It's not biblical faith. Even though there's similarities, we usually think of faith as a biblical term, talking about our relationship with God and our faith in Him. That's not what he's talking about in this chapter. So he defines faith as something that you believe without proof. And Hill says that faith can be induced voluntarily through repetition or something he calls auto-suggestion. The chapter also highlights focusing on positive thoughts and eliminating negative thoughts from our mind in order to reach our subconscious mind. And then Hill spends the remainder of the chapter talking about something called the self-confidence formula. I'm just going to read this for you because I don't have it memorized. All right, so here's number 1. I know that I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here and now promise to render such action. Not bad. That sounds good. Number 2, the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person that I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture. So this is basically what today we call visualization, thinking where you want to be and imagining yourself there. And then what we often do is reverse engineer the steps it takes to get there. Number 3, I know through the theory of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek some expression through some practical means of obtaining the object or position I desire. Number 4, I have clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim, and I will never stop trying until I develop sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. And then number 5, this is kind of a long one. I realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. I will engage in no transaction that will not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces that I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve them. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, for I know that a negative attitude toward others will never bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. So I don't know about you, but when I hear that last one, number 5, I'm like, it sounds pretty good, but there's some things in there that are kind of questionable. So these concepts in chapters 2 and 3 really aren't anything new to most of us. I mean, we're familiar with being determined and pursuing something. Many of us have done this with things like health and diet, or bad habits and good habits. So we know in our mind that we want to get away from bad habits. We know what happens when we pursue those bad habits. And so how do we go about doing that? Maybe we write down or we think about the negative impacts that those habits are having on our life. And then in turn, we have some kind of determination to pursue the positive habit. So something as simple as dieting. We know we shouldn't eat sugar and salt and chips. And so maybe we set our mind and we auto-suggest to ourselves the positive benefits of eating healthy. What can life look like? How can I live better if I pursue these positive eating habits? And I think what Hill suggests is we need to have definiteness of purpose and determination and do the hard work to pursue those things. We fail when we don't have those. So this really isn't anything new, except he's applying it to the pursuit of wealth. I think the idea of writing down, kind of like his 6-step method, is a good idea. To write down every day what it is we want to achieve and make sure we're working towards those goals. I've talked many times before about Donald Miller's suggestion of writing down and reading your obituary each day. It's determining what is the legacy that I want to have someday and what do I need to do today to reach that. And then in chapter 3, he talks about the self-confidence formula. I think generally speaking, there's definitely some good in there that can help us become more confident. My concern is with number 5, where he talks about inducing people to do things for you. Now, he kind of balances that out by us doing good things for them and loving them and not hating anybody. But as you continue to read through this book, this idea of inducing others becomes a little more prominent. And that's where I took issue with the book. Later in the book, Hill talks about something called the sixth sense. And this has nothing to do with the movie, so don't be confused. But he uses some phrases that make me really uncomfortable as a Christian. He talks about reaching the universal mind. Now keep in mind that I don't recall him anywhere in the book saying that he's a Christian, so I don't expect him to come from a Christian worldview. But he talks about this deism, kind of like a power that permeates the world, really not a whole lot different than the Force in Star Wars. And then what he says is that this intelligence can be induced to do things for us. It can tell us when good things are going to happen or when bad things are going to happen. And the way he talks about it is like that we can manipulate this intelligence. And so it certainly is some type of deism or psychological divination. And that's where, as a Christian, I just felt like I need to turn away from this. And so because of that, I'm not going to continue to do overview videos like this of the book. So my suggestion would be, as a Christian, if you're reading this book, is to take some of the principles from chapters probably 1 through 6 and then stop there. So here's my perspective, and I'm sure some of you are going to disagree with this, but this is the way I see things. I believe that God gives us basically his general revelation. We can find good and truth in the world, and not just in Christianity. I think in other religions, in psychology, in different philosophies, there is truth, biblical truth, that can be found. So basically they are taking God's truth and applying it to their own religions or philosophies. And so the whole idea of like determination or pursuing a purpose, these aren't Napoleon Hill's ideas. Yeah, he writes about them and focuses a lot of time on them, but these are God's truths. These are truths that God has put in humanity as image bearers. There's a passage in Matthew 5 that you might know. It says this, it says, "I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." So in some ways, God blesses all humanity, for example, with the sun and the rain that we need to survive. But he also blesses humanity with general revelation and exposure to some of his truth. And I would say that's what Hill does here. He uses some of God's truth, but he mixes it with divination or psychological deism. So I would say start your journey in pursuing success, applying some of Napoleon Hill's principles, but knowing and realizing that his principles, if they don't align with God's truth, should be thrown away. And then I'm going to repeat again my warning, which is to read up to chapter 3, maybe up to chapter 6, but then stop reading the book. Now, if you want to achieve goals this year and find definiteness of purpose, check out this video next.